The internet is wide open for another enthralling episode of our wonderful podcast that we do that uh, we hope users and watchers get some enjoyment out. What do I have up on the screen here? Solana looks like a turd. Um, let's go to the Qs. Oh, we got a little green today on the Qs there.
Did you share the links? Why don't they show up? Why
I'm
look at
I'm 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 sharing it right now.
Okay.
I know you don't like getting too hot and heavy before I share the links. So
Well, you barely get 20 people to sign on, so at least giving those 20 people
yeah, yeah,
to listen from the beginning would be a nice thing, right?
yeah, it would be. But we're recording and it's live, so I just do the small talk, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So let's do spy and QQQ. And what do you want the third one to be? GP?
Um, let's do I don't care.
Bitcoin?
Netflix
Netflix. What a Netflix, huh?
or Tesla if we want more exposure, you know?
Tesla
Yeah, why not?
and Tesla. Fuck. Do we want to talk about Elon today? Because I don't want to talk about Elon today. I am. Oh man. We're
We should
live.
we should
We
talk about it
should
because earnings are coming up.
now. Let's talk markets with GP. There we go. All right. And that. Oh, almost hit the thing a little too early. So there's the stock twat. And I'm really considering just folding X up and going home, GP. I know I already stopped paying the premium, but
I,
I'm having a hard time wanting to stay on this
you know what?
platform.
If we want exposure, that's kind of where the platform is, right?
And
So
you know, I don't really care. All right,
I
we've got the tweet out there too now. You want to just start with Tesla and Elon? You want to just start there?
yeah, let me just retweet these out.
You want to just start there? We can if you like. It doesn't matter. Because I honestly don't care if he has Asperger's or not. Like I don't really care.
Yeah.
I can't square that in my mind. And we all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, let's dive into some of this stuff. Okay. All right, I've tweeted it out now. We're good. Um, I think.
Yeah, I see them. I can see them. We've got five people already here. What's up, Brian? I'll put on the Tesla chart.
Yeah.
There it is. I'll even throw the moving averages on there. You got the daily, we'll do the daily too. You know, some volume, we'll turn on some volume. There you go.
Let's do it. So Tesla had a monster move, right? Um, and
Yeah.
for 6 weeks, 6 weeks, it's been doing whatever this is in terms of waiting for earnings. So I was like, okay, well, let's see if there's more to this price action than not. Looked at the earnings potential expectations based on delivery. And as of now, based on my expectations, assuming that the average selling price of every vehicle is the same as last quarter, and the average cost of goods, which was their lowest ever last quarter at 35.1, is the exact same. Their their gigawatts and everything. I posted the chart on on X, Twitter, or whatever you want to call it, and just highlighting it. Not that anything in earnings ever means that the reaction will be great or not, right? Like unless something comes out, and it's not going to be some hype. conversation or something like that. I mean, like actual legit, because most of the hype in Tesla usually just gets to a peak and then comes back to its valley and then bases and does what it's thing. So need some earnings meaningful reaction to go based on the fact of last quarter's double expansion on operating and gross profit margins on cost of goods coming down. So you need to see the trajectory to continue the same way. Based on what I see, year over year, they missed deliveries. So a gap down, which to me makes no sense if the market is looking forward, because in for Q3 they sold 464,000, 465,000 vehicles, and um, in in this last quarter they sold 495,000. Yes, it's less than last year comparatively, right? Total volume. Um, but it's still 30,000 more. So it's increasing in revenue. Same thing with their energy storage business, which is it went from looks like based on what they said 11 gigawatts, went from 6.9, I believe was the number, to 11. So they've nearly doubled their gigawatt, which is their highest operating profit margins. So if you're looking at this from like a fund perspective, you would see those numbers and be like, hey, let me try to get in as low as possible. So I think that's what's happening here. But you never know with earnings reaction because Tesla is heavily, I think outside of NVIDIA, it is one of the most heavily options gaming platform on the in the markets. Right? Like there's just based on flow and stuff like that. There's been a lot of further dated calls that have come into Tesla, like January 2026, January 2027, that I've seen over the last couple of days going into earnings. Yet the one that they're highlighting is the 215 puts for February. Tesla's never had a 50, I saw 215 puts for this week too and 320. Anyway, I've never seen Tesla move 50% down in a week in all these years of owning it. So I think that's just them selling this week to fund their February ones on off chance of it going 50% lower based on deliveries. But ultimately it was a $600,000 bet, right? Like the amount of money that flows into Tesla options, $600,000 is like a chump change in most scenarios. If you're looking at the call options out to January 2026 and 2027, there's at the money, near the money, right out of the money call options that are happening, and I'm talking millions, like 2 to 4 million blocks everywhere over the last couple of days. Doesn't mean it can't go lower in the short term, but the trajectory of so Tesla, all things are binary events. And so if you're asking me for a prediction on this earnings, I think the earnings will be good. I don't know what the reaction will be. If people see it and they want to beat it down and they want to get in lower, it's possible, right? Anything is possible. There's been a lot of accumulation already at the lows, at both lows, 100 and 184 and 138, 38 levels. There's been a lot of accumulation. So it is not behaving like prior all-time high breakouts. That's for sure. Never seen this type of consolidation. It's a different market than in 2013 and 2019. So I don't have a read on where it's going in the short term, but if you're looking 8, 12 months out, this thing is going to be much higher regardless of what Elon does or doesn't do.
And that's my problem. I mean, I famously sold out of my Facebook Meta shares for a not even more, well, not even a more egregious thing. So these are shares that I no longer want to have. These are shares that I think are going lower, not just because of my personal disdain for the CEO, but as I look at the chart here, I mean, we're sitting on the 9 weekly. Our RSI is already crossing over to the downside. I don't see this as a favorable set up currently, and I could totally be wrong. And I've been wrong from the bottom. I mean, I didn't sell the bottom of Meta. I was out way before a bottom. But I didn't invest in Meta because I did not believe morally and ethically. This is where I don't pad my pockets with things that I don't align with. And my position in Amazon, quite frankly, is up for grab too. And but that's a more of a political stance as opposed to an ethical stance.
I see
Um,
that. I hear you on that stuff. But so my wife was in the same boat.
yep.
Like say she texted me from New Zealand and she's like, I'm selling this, we're selling the car. I'm like, first of all, you're like adding insult to injury, right? Because these things depreciated like crazy over the last couple of years. Um, and now you're going to sell the stock right before it could potentially move. So you don't even get to participate in the upside. And I'm like, you know how many questionable turd banging
Yeah.
um, CEOs there are across the board? Gates is famously one of them. Larry Ellison, everyone talks about, he's a turd.
I,
Um,
I know this is the same conversation we had with
yeah.
my Meta reasoning, right? Like I understand that I very well could and probably am leaving money on the table. But also in good conscience. Um, I mean, I can't get down with somebody who does a salute on stage that all of a sudden people are falling themselves older falling over themselves to say, "Don't believe your lying eyes." I have real issues with that, and I wish we had been on the pod last week. I was probably in a more tempered place than I am now because yeah, I didn't get all the angles and I didn't get to see all the versions of it. But
So
more
hold
than
on
that,
a second before you continue, right? So
Mhm.
I 100% agree. And this is the first time in owning the stock for over a decade or nearly a decade. I was like, holy shit. Or second time, I would say, holy shit. The cult status that people talk about is really, really eye-opening. I love the stock. I love, like, not a huge fan of Elon at many times. But guy executes. He's got a vision. He's visionary. I'm not talking about any of that other stuff. So, but there are so many. I don't think I'd invest in the stock market if I actually looked at every CEO in the process, right? Like I would
Yeah,
just go buy T-bills. Oh shit, the government sucks too, right? Like so,
yeah,
like there are
I
30.
I understand GP. Like
Yeah,
there is a lot of bad out there, and fortunately, we have the luxury to be able to paint with different shades of gray, right?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I'm not making an excuse for owning his shares and stuff like that. I'm just what I'm saying is if I started to deep dive, he's openly doing this crazy nonsense, but like there was no reason for it, right? Like I'm not saying he's a Nazi. What I'm saying is you know the symbol and you're smart enough not to make that gaffe on a public stage. Maybe you're not that smart. I don't know, but and then he doubles down and talks about how great German people are in a conference like 3 or 4 days later, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
no, it was the AFD's party. It was a meeting of the AFD party in Germany, and people can go Google that for themselves. I'm not going to give a civics lecture here, but I, with my money, right? I can lose all my money if I want to. That's my decision.
mhm.
I can decide whatever investments I want my money to be in. Just like I chose to not have my money participating with Zuckerberg, I'm choosing not to have my money participating with Elon Musk.
Yeah, and so Zuckerberg in this element over the last couple of months, right? Watching these CEOs get on their knees, right? Essentially. Sorry, that sounded disrespectful, but
No, that's what they're
where
doing.
where were you for 4 years to stand up and fight the administration? And all of a sudden you're like, "Ooh, yeah, great things." I was like, if you were this annoyed for 4 years, then why weren't you publicly talking about it? It is to me, it is a lack of like I love leaders who step up and take action in the face of adversity. And Zuck is to me a great is just another super smart guy, but he couldn't wait to throw people under the bus. And I think he's actually much worse than Elon Musk because he doesn't talk about it and he comes and does it. He does it afterwards. He threw Sheryl Sandberg under the bus. This
Yeah.
lady transformed your business, which IPO'd at 50, went all the way to 12 because your dumbass couldn't figure out how to monetize advertising. She came in and revamped your entire thing. You can invest all this money and make all this money, and you throw this woman under the bus 2 seconds after the administration bolts. That to me is
Yeah, no,
is
I
equally as bad, right?
it, it
Like,
it's less of being the political perspective of who they're aligned with. Um, I realize most companies give money to both sides of the aisle, and to a large extent, right? Businesses in money to make money and ingratiate and increase their shareholder wealth. Like I get it. I'm not foolish to know that to a large part our political parties are trying to be more powerful and also enrich themselves. So I get it. At the same time, with good conscience, I can't hold on to shares that I know I will never ideologically agree with a person who's in maybe the biggest stage he's ever been on throw up that salute. And again, I will believe my own lying eyes before I hear someone else try to explain it away.
yeah, yeah. So I saw the video. Like, you can argue both ways. I'm not saying it, but the reality is, I could wake up a 5-year-old or someone who's actually been in school and taken history, so like a 10-year-old, and be like, "Hey, what's that?" They'll be like, "Oh, that looks very similar to this," right? Whether he meant it or not is a whole different conversation. Um, I just he like we're just going through in our little Discord today of all. Someone told me I have a lot of pain tolerance. I was like, I'm a Tesla shareholder. Pain tolerances are my middle name. And then so I started listing out all the different things he's done over the years, and I'm like this guy called a rescue diver a pedophile in the middle of 2019, getting cut in half by 51%. Now people see it and be like, "Oh, this is the pattern of Tesla. You buy this and make a ton of money." In 2019, there was no pattern, right? This was like, "Oh shit, after 6 years, I'm gonna have to sell at break even," right? Like of holding, and then in the middle of all that, he was like, "Oh, by the way, on April Fool's Day, we're gonna go bankrupt." It's like, yo, you were on the verge of bankruptcy and you're joking, and I'm like, yo, he is the person on both sides of the aisle. He has not changed. So if you're expecting him to change in these years of investment,
Anyway, I
I
think the stock looks bearish. This is to Jay, who says, "Who cares about his politics? It's how the company's performing." The stock looks bearish to me. The price looks bearish to me. GP argues otherwise. I'm not saying that because of a political statement. I'm saying that because the statement that he made with his gesture. All right. And the
yeah,
stock
you're
does
having a
look
backbone,
bearish.
and you're having a backbone, right? Like it's important to you on how you invest your money. So that's all you're saying here. I'm not arguing you to change
Yeah,
your
yeah,
stance.
I know you're not arguing me. And I know you're not trying to convince me to stay. You're giving the other side of the perspective of the investment side, and there are other non white knight CEOs out there. I realize this is a dirty game. I realize that there's a lot of people, insiders, CEOs, other people in the C-suite who are less than uh pure as the driven snow. I get it. I'm not foolish to that. I'm not blind to that. The as I stated, the beautiful thing is I get to decide who I want to grow my money with versus who I don't want to. And I have not liked being in Tesla for a very long time. And this was just, this was the jumping of the shark for me. That's all.
Yeah, and honestly, my thought process, and I posted about this yesterday, is that what we've seen over the last 8 months. While we've gone sideways, by the way, there's no downtrend. We literally tagged July highs on the NQs, the tech futures yesterday. So same argument from back in 2022. We're sideways. We're not going
Okay.
anywhere. There's a lot of distribution. But what we saw during the yen carry trade and what we saw yesterday was insanely just to me was like, oh my God, it's finally happening. People are finally being forced out of their safety positions and reallocating their money into different sectors that they could see potentially rising in the potentially upcoming bullish um, economic segment, right?
Yeah.
I'm in the camp of
Speaking of, right? I mean, we talked about AMD on the last podcast. I just pulled up the chart. Totally expected that undercut of the 115.54. It's happened. We're bouncing right now.
that.
I added a few shares there to my very long position. Um, it still looks like absolute hell. But yesterday's sell-off, um, how can I say this more politically correct? Was likely some fucking bullshit.
Yep. Yeah, dude. It was so like this is the same. So I posted the Affirm chart too. I we're talking about Tesla, but I think when you're talking about total equity returns, I think there are so many better names than Tesla on total equity percentage returns. And then you have all the outside bullshit that goes on with Tesla as well, right? Like, so, like, Affirm's a great example. Affirm did this exact same thing for a much longer period going into the yen carry trade, right? Like, it tagged the previous low on very, very low volume. And that went from 21 or 22 or whatever it was all the way to 70. That is nearly a 400% gain in 3 months on equity. So Tesla, whatever, my focus is more on these names, which is these bases, like the safety names, they'll do what they'll do, chop up, down. They're like, oh my God, I hit my target. That's 1% higher than what it hit like 8 months ago, right? Like fucking, you're great. Give me real targets on things that can really move higher and out of bases, then we can talk, right?
Yeah.
NVIDIA, great stock, but I've been talking about a short in NVIDIA for 4 months. I've been a very, very frustrated short in NVIDIA for 4 months because they essentially just kept it sideways. And they finally had this secondary movement. And look at that. People are already up and buying it
Yeah.
inside day-ish. And I think it goes lower personally. I think money's coming out of this sector in the short term and reallocating it elsewhere for the longer term, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think
Uh,
Nvidia is going back to like 40. I think they have an insane business model. So I think it will continue to rise, but continue to outperform the bases that we've been setting in so many names over the last 2 to 4 years. That's my personal opinion.
In the money call buyers yesterday are very happy.
Yeah,
If they sold, they should have sold already. If they were in the money call buyers yesterday for this week,
but you
that's
got to
an
take notice of the distribution, right? That's a
yeah.
pretty decent distribution day. That's the second biggest distribution day in the last 9 months, 10 months, right? So
Yep.
but what I loved about yesterday was not the bullshit price action that was happening, but what we saw in the markets across the board. Like people came in and swooped in, started buying software. Software's been on fire for 2 days. Are you watching what's happening in Snow, MDB, Salesforce, Monday.com, Okta, Zscaler, right? We can go through the whole list, but
Okta's been looking good.
yeah, Twilio. Um,
Twilio, I haven't talked about Twilio, and oh my goodness, they got rid of their CEO and watch them go.
they got it up, and so they got it up and got like a 20% move in one day. So they had their big investor day, and but what is it about this chart that you can see that these moves are coming is you see the base. This base exists in so many names. PayPal, Square, now known as XYZ. Someone should fire Jack, by the way.
Square is now
XYZ.
named XYZ.
Yeah, he renamed it to XYZ.
What's the is it still
XYZ
SQ?
symbol.
Is now
XYZ.
XYZ symbol?
Yes.
Are you fucking kidding me? Come on, Jack. You're better than
So
this.
all of these, right? Like, so now you've seen two big distribution days over the 8 months, and all of these are basing from, they're basically in the same range they were in like 2014 to 2019 before
When did
COVID
this
took,
shit happen? I'm sorry.
like
Like I
last
know
week.
I'm not breathing every second of the market, but when did XYZ happen?
Last week it changed over. He announced it about a month ago.
Oh my god. Anyway, sorry.
Well,
That
so
was
all I'm saying is someone was asking me, he's like, well, what do you see? I'm like, there's so many bases. Go do the work, right? But here, right? XYZ, PayPal, Payc, we can go across the board on these names. And I think they'll continue basing until they show that they are doing well. But um, right? They're all back between 2017 and 2019 prices. So if you just kind of remove that entire COVID sector, if you could, like I posted a chart about it, you look at it, it's basically a 10-year base.
yeah,
And it's a so you can you know how we talked about, I think in 2022, the lost decade? We're already approaching the lost decade in so many of these names.
interesting.
Look at Disney.
No, that's a very, very interesting way of looking at this and thinking of this. But you take out all the free money from COVID, and you're basically you're flat. You're flat.
You've been flat for a decade, right? So we've been talking about the lost decade, but I think we were thinking about it post-COVID, right? But if you're
Yeah.
looking at it from a larger time frame, take a step back and and realize that so many names in so many sectors in so many parts of the market have gone nowhere in 8 to 10 years. Remove the COVID period. You can
Yeah, yeah.
see COVID period on all of these. Take a look at the volume that was happening during COVID versus all the volume that's happened since or before. And you'll see a pattern there too.
I'm just pulling up random names.
Yeah. Good perspective, right? It's
I'm just pulling up random. That is good, GP. Hey, high five.
but it's so Square, Roku. I can go through the list of all. Like, look at this. Take out COVID from Roku, it's flat. Their business has grown probably tenfold since
Probably
they
down. Well,
IPO'd.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's up from the IPO.
Yeah, yeah. I'm saying since they have IPO'd, they have probably grown an insane amount, right? I don't know the exact numbers. I don't know all the financials of every company, but we've gone nowhere.
I remember this is about where I bought Roku back in the day in the like 78, 80 somewhere.
But look at the volume on that big spike up. If you take that section out, look at the volume that's happening during COVID. It is non-existent, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm
And
I'm
so
I'm with you. I'm 100% with you right now.
so like my thought process is that we are in a cycle where I think the economy supports what the stock market has been doing, regardless of all the narratives out there. I think what you're going to see is SPX 10,000 after all this is said and done. Did the analysis. Someone told me I'm cherry picking my time frames, but from 1974 to 1998, the SPX moved nearly 2,100%. Since 1998 to 2025 Friday, the S&P moved, drum roll, 300%.
From 1998 to now, 500%,
318%. No,
518%.
I took the end of to 98. The SPX was 1449. There's no way it's a 500% move at 6,000.
400% move.
That's
From
December 1st,
98,
end of 98. So say take
1998,
January 1st,
January
1999,
1st,
1999.
1999.
You're still at December.
I know, GP, leave me alone. I've had a very interesting day.
Yeah.
There, January 1st, 1999. January 1st, 1999. Right there. Pow.
Yeah.
372%.
Oh, I did the exact closes to Friday's close, and it was
Oh my
350.
God. I can never please you.
So all I'm saying is take a step back and walk yourself off the fucking ledge and take a look at what so many stocks have done over the last 8 to 10 years.
Take a look at this big old hard on that is Roblox.
It is,
Shout out
it
to
is,
Brian for bringing up Roblox. I like to talk about it. I mean, this reminds me of what was that, 2023, when a young man named Gautam and another young man named Ben were saying Coinbase, 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 Coinbase. Am I wrong? Does that remind you of the same thing?
dude, that was a 52, right? And you bought equity, I bought leaps,
Yeah.
did well, and essentially as soon as I sold my
I bought
leap at
both. I bought both. I had both.
well, basically since buying those, I mean selling those leaps, it's kind of done not a lot, right? It's it's gone up, don't get me wrong, but it's the same price as it was February 2024.
I think
Um,
this is going much higher. I think this is
oh yeah.
just started, honestly. I was looking to get back in, and then this happened, and now this is happening. So I'm gonna see if I can get in right around somewhere in the lower 60s. Maybe I'm gonna be waiting longer. I don't know. But this is a position I wanted to add two more, and it is currently my fifth largest holding. So I
Doesn't Roblox have like a questionable kind of um space as well, right? Like
yeah,
what we were talking about before the pod. Like I don't want to say it out loud, but
yeah, no,
right, like that's a big concern of theirs as well.
it is. Again, no, yes, without getting into too much detail, yes, that is an issue. I do like it to go much higher here, though. Speaking of another name that I really like, I still love my cybersecurity, and Sentinel One to me is just getting up off the mat.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be so surprised if this does not just go soon. I mean, you look at all these names. You were mentioning all the marketing names, the Salesforce and the Twilios. I mean, look at
Zscaler?
CrowdStrike.
No, Strike, Zscaler.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
Okta.
Yep. The money's
So
rotating, right? If you can't see that clearly, the money is rotating.
I'm not. I don't typically like the laggard. I typically like the leader. In this particular case, though, I think there is too much upside in this one specific name. And I've laid out this thesis before, but I shall do it again. This company is born with AI and automation in mind for security. And this company will either go much higher or they will be bought out by another one of these major security or tech firms and go much higher. So
Yeah.
they will either go on their own or they will be dragged higher. And either way, I'm in for it. And I think we're just starting to see the beginning. Every single, I posted this the other day, Friday, I think when I just did a little chart storm for shits and giggles. Every earnings disappointment has been the buy of a lifetime. Look, you could have bought
Yeah.
here
They're
at
building, right?
13. You could have bought here at 14. You could have bought here at 20. Anyway, this is not investment advice. This is what I am personally doing. So I have a lot of faith in this, and the setup looks really, really good. Uh,
They're using earnings to build. This is
yeah,
a tr tested true standard, right? If the earnings aren't
yeah.
bad and it still has a bad reaction, guess what they're doing?
They're
They're
buying
giving
shares.
yes. It's typical. It sounds counterintuitive, but it is exactly what this market does, and it does it consistently and has for so many years,
I'm
right?
sure if somebody wanted to go search my post on StockTwits, they could find this late May earnings post. And I showed the on balance volume of how many people were buying this after hours while it was getting slaughtered. Something
Yeah.
doesn't add up. I mean, you see the green bars, right? Like these, you add these up and they are more than these right here. So do what you want to do your own due diligence, do your own homework. But I think this is a fantastic opportunity right here. I tried to
Mhm.
sell puts last week and get longer, even more. I couldn't, so I just had to buy them outright. My puts didn't happen at 22. So I had to buy 23. Wah, wah, wah. Bags didn't get it. It's okay. Um, I am not going to miss the train on this one. I am just like SoFi, just like all these other names. I love when a stock is hated, GP, because that means it's not a crowded trade. And
Yeah.
if there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the company and the thesis is still the same, it's not a no. That's not a no answer. That's not a reason to not be involved. It's just people don't like it.
Yeah.
And I've done really well with people not liking my name, so I
One
still
of the
love
greatest
support.
buying opportunities in all these names, right? Like, and we're just referencing Roblox, is when it was the height of all the children safety concerns, right? Children safety concerns, right? Like, yes, we've operating this platform, but we're so this we talked about how frustrating it's been, right? And but one of the first, I think, couple of the first 6 months we talked about Roblox. I'm like, this, I think we all agreed on. It's like this is a let it base. This is a buy and accumulate and let it work out. And so now uh, it's doing a steady grind. So Sentinel One is in the same kind of category. Just use opportunities to buy. Everyone wants these amazing gains immediately after they buy. And that's not necessarily how it works. Unless
No,
you're a Fitwit guru and you're a rock star, you
or an
catch this
insider.
every single moment, right?
You know about
Um,
somebody dropping a meme coin and you jump all over it the second it drops, something like that.
yeah, you bought it before it even launched. That's
Yeah,
how good you.
yeah, that's how good. There's something else I wanted to bring up, GP. I mobilized one of my newer positions, and I mentioned it 2 weeks ago when we had our last pod, and you kind of like you didn't poo poo it per se, but you were like, yeah, of course it deserved to be slaughtered. I still have pretty high conviction in this name. Tell me your bear case or why you are interested in Mobileye.
I bought shares this year actually.
So you are interested in Mobileye.
Yeah,
Maybe I
like I literally.
misunderstood. I couldn't read between the lines.
No, it was to me the volume on that sell-off was kind of notable, right? So
Yeah,
you needed to start acting better. So
yeah,
I I peeped it from a larger time frame and I'm like, okay, I want to be long. The question is where, right?
yep,
And do buyers show up? So
agreed.
right, like and so you had, I would say, I think it was the quarterly I was looking at. I'm just pulling it up here. Hold on.
I'll
Right.
pull it up.
Last quarter was the heaviest volume in Mobileye ever, ever.
Ever.
It's only like 8 quarters, 9 quarters, right? But in the height of death talks, this puts in the largest volume. It's on my radar, right? Like in terms
Yep,
of longer time frames. And then so you start breaking it down from there. So yesterday or over the last couple of weeks, I've been watching it. It hasn't like it's retesting the breakdown, right? Essentially.
yep, yep.
And so this, if you go to the daily chart, right, and then scroll back to August,
There you go.
and so this is what I'm talking about, right? 8.5, deep suck my, um, both of them bringing it back to the same range. If you draw a line from the highs of that red candle, right, and if you draw the lows, another line, where did price hold?
Right there.
Bang. So when I'm talking about that immediate reaction, I wanted to see that area hold, right? It held. It is now holding for multiple weeks. So when it was relatively performing better than the other chip names yesterday, that was my kind
Yeah.
of high, right? And now I don't care. I will watch it, stops in place, and let it do its thing, right?
I
And
had
so
that
I think,
same exact chart somewhere that you just had me draw. I've got too many charts. Whatever. Um, Back to the clean. There we go. No, I like it. Not. I don't mean to downplay the lack of a show at CES, but I totally mean to downplay the lack of the show at CES. At the end of the day, the Consumer Electronics Show is to show all the grandiose things that you're going to do in the future, right?
yeah,
And a lot of these things at CES, I don't know if you've been to CES before, but a lot of these things never, some of these things don't come to fruition. Some of these things don't come to fruition as planned. Some of these things take a lot longer than expected. So there's a lot of fluff and a lot of I'm not going to say make believe, but there's often you have to read between the lines at a consumer electronics show.
yeah,
And yes, I no one wants to see their investment go down 10, 13, and 7% in consecutive days. But nothing fundamentally changed from the company other than tech writers and financial writers didn't like what the performance was on stage. That's basically the gist of it. And I was looking back here in this same range to get long. And finally, I had an opportunity to. Like UGP, if it goes wrong and it breaks down below this level, obviously that's concerning. But however, where it is right now, I like it. I like it building, continue to build the base above 15. Um, I've traded in and out of shares for several sessions in the 15s up to the 17s.
yeah.
And
And
that's been a profitable little trade, and I'm still long shares. So basically, every time I'm doing that, I'm keeping my lowest cost base and selling my highest, and keeping my lowest cost base and selling my highest. It's just rinse and repeat for the last couple of weeks, and I'm not mad at it at all. I want to see it go much higher, but I think this is a good one to keep on the radar.
well, do me a favor, right? A couple different shorter time frames on Mobileye, so we can take a look at it, right? So you get a thought process, not you, but the audience gets in a thought process of what I see, what I'm looking at, right? So go on the Mobileye a 30-minute, the smallest time frame that I look on for some of these entries, right? And so from the CES episode, right? You can see that the volume on that 30-minute bar is the heaviest volume it's seen since I guess November, October timeframe, right?
Pretty big bar.
That's a huge bar. And it trumps over. So I'm like, okay, that to me is the first eye-opening piece. It's not an actionable piece, but it's we're down here and
There's
you've
buyers.
there's more buyers than sellers in the same day, right? This is not even another day in the same day. So, okay, trigger, at a support level too, right? So at a support level, you have this this point where it's like, okay, well, buyers are showing up. So now you got to see that the support actually has support, and then you watch it. Entry right now is maybe $1 down and much higher than 22, 23 where it was, right? Out of this. It may take a year. I'm
Yeah.
not saying this is going to happen in 5 months, right? Or 2 days or whatever. It may take a year. But Mobile Eye, the reason I was watching Mobile Eye, the reason I'm watching Ambarella as well, right? That's the other one. In the chip space, there are different
How do you spell umbrella?
subsectors, AMBA,
NBA.
right? And there are different subsectors. And if you're looking at the rest of the market, what are you seeing as a trend? Where AI is now profitable or helpful to consumer facing businesses, not the build out, but the actual implementation of it, right? Which is why software is on fire the last couple of days. And you're seeing the name show up. Mobileye, their AI piece is consumer facing, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it's cameras for smart cars and all that other stuff. I mean, robo cars or autonomous driving. Sorry, there we go. I'll get there eventually. Um, and so that's if I want to put money into, and that's why I have some money in AMD as well, which has been a miserable because they're more consumer based technology, in my opinion, than they are on the hardware build side. So they benefit for the secondary cycle and not the primary cycle. Doesn't mean all the primary cycle winners just go to zero. They still perform. I'm talking about outperformance, right?
Yep.
Uh, as they say, in a bull market, you're not a genius. You're just in a bull market. So the genius is finding when in the bull market the ones that outperform, in my opinion. So that's where we're at.
Tell me about Ambarella. That's the first time I've heard you bring up that name.
I've been watching for a really long time. Similar kind of setup as Mobile Eye. Lots of buying over the last couple, like last since August 5th, right? Since that moment. And earnings reactions are good, and it's just kind of stumbling around. I like this as a just a chart play. I don't know the fundamentals as well. I believe they're more consumer facing as well. Their chip structures.
Yep.
So that's kind of why I have these two on my radar. Um, yeah,
I
dude.
mean, if it gets close to anywhere near former all-time highs, I mean that's that's bigger than a double.
Oh, look at that, another 10-year base.
I mean, you're just conservatively, that's 175% just to get back up to 206.
Yeah, this I will tell you trades like complete and utter garbage 97% of the time. So if you're adding me on a 5%, 10% down move, expect
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is not one of those easy stomach plays. You want easy stomach plays, go buy Costco.
Yeah. Just go buy the SPY or the Qs and have a nice day, right?
And so let's talk about another hated sector that we talked about in the last podcast, China.
And
uh,
Baba
and Baba
specifically.
Trade, which is on fire right now. It just popped like $3 as we're talking, or $2 as we're talking. Um, solid move.
Yep.
If if you this is one of my kind of now a lot of people are posting about how China is going to have a great year because of Trump's first year in 2017, and so I always get wary of those moments, but it's been in the doghouse for a really long time. So in 2018, 2017, the first year of um, Trump's presidency, Baba went from 86 to 171 by August. I don't know if we're gonna. It's
From
not the same.
96 when he took office in 90, it was at 96.
Was
And it,
it? Okay.
and it popped on the week of inauguration. But yeah, when he took office, it was
Yeah, I mean like the start of that year, right? Like
just
what he was.
220%. That's all. Just 220%. Past performance doesn't necessarily equate to future profit or
No,
loss.
but we gave the trade June 1, 2020 calls.
Mhm.
If you're like, hey, where's your free alpha? There's your fucking free alpha, right? So
And I'm in shares. I've had shares from back here in the 70s. Um, but that was a great trade for me on the call options that I had. Uh, I'm not getting into calls right now.
it's not
But
an easy market for options.
yeah, options are a little high priced. I'm selling a lot of puts. And as you can probably tell, I've been the bear of our little friendly trio for some time. I'm starting to put a little more money to work. I'm not completely sold that we are out of the woods as far as seeing some potential downturn, but I will tell you this: yesterday's scare, GP, I meant to text you, but it did remind me of the yen carry trade. And I was like, this is the bullshit to suck in all the bears, right?
Yep.
And those who have cash on hand, you should probably be putting some of it to work in this major sell off that's over some bullshit. And that seems to be my MO. I start putting money to work when I smell bullshit, and I smell bullshit.
Wait till you marinate in the 10-year remove COVID base theory.
No, I'm on board with that. Is there any other names? We only got about 2 more minutes, GP. I know you like to be off here for Power Hour.
Yeah.
But what other than Amba, I threw out a few names that I kind of liked. I gave you the reason on Mobileye. I gave you the reason on Sentinel One, which has been no clue, no secret that I've been in on that. Is there any other names that you're looking at or you really like? If not, I have one or two that I'd like to bring up.
So I'll give you a general statement there, and then I'll give you another one, right? So general statement is there. Take a look at what outperformed between August and October from the yen carry trade and try to find, like, look at those charts and find the ones that you want to do. Um, right? I think all of those are now ready for their secondary breakouts, right? That's stage two that we've been looking for like well over some time. Um, Affirm falls into that category. Upstart falls into that category. There's quite a few names that had massive outperformance in a 3 month period that have come back in on very, very low volume. The other one that people don't talk about is Redfin,
You have been Redfin champion for a long time.
right? And so it was very frustrating to watch it go from 15 all the way back to 7. But this is what Redfin does. And if this is part of the secondary cycle, if you're buying here at 860 and it takes out it makes another high, which is where I've been wanting it to go around 18, that's 100% move, right? And you'll have seasonality that comes in. If the Fed comes in a bit more dovish, that's another reason. It is the rinse and repeat cycle of Redfin. There is a lot of accumulation going on here. There will be a moment where you will never be able to buy this again. That is not that moment right now, but it's there's a lot of generally good accumulation going on in
It looks
Redfin.
good right here. I
Uh,
mean, I would consider throwing on a starter right here. I love an
yeah.
RSI crossover, and I love the jumbled moving averages and above 880. It's holding everything. Yeah, so I like it right here at 870.
And it's been I'll say it's a frustrating trade, but when you buy right and you're sitting tight, you get these moments, right? I think my average price is probably right under $6 on it. So watching it come back to 7, I was like, oh gosh. But I'm not your, I'm not MBG, right? Who's constantly shifting his his investments, right?
His
And
booblahs around.
taking his 5%. If I have a name, I have conviction in it, I want to be long for the long term. I'm not managing it
Yeah.
on that active level, right? I'll manage it actively via um, options, right? Buy puts, whatever, but I won't actually touch the core that much.
I'm back active in Rivian. This has been a death trap uh
Dude, goodness.
since what last or July summer of 23. It's been a death trap. But I'm back in Rivian. I kind of like I know that the current administration is getting rid of all of those electric vehicle subsidies. Meh, I don't really care about that. I just look at the chart, and again, we got the moving averages all coiled up. It needs to make a move above 14 for me. But this is a name I've been keeping on watch, itching to add to. I picked off some, uh, when it was down in the $10 range, but I want to make this a larger position, and I think that there has to be a uh, a practical truck and SUV for the electric market. I don't think Tesla is going anywhere, and this is kind of I'm not in Tesla, but I'm still going to be in electric vehicles. So I might be kicking and screaming that I want this to do something and it hasn't done it yet. But I like it down here at these levels as opposed to in the 20s. You got any thoughts, GP? Stay away.
Uh, Sorry, give me a second. So Rivian is my. I'm just answering a question. Just give me a second, all right? Keep
Yeah, no
talking a
problem.
little bit more Rivian.
No problem. Through the trend on there, that's what the downtrend's been. But we're
Yeah.
still trying to fight a little bit of an uptrend here since last April. So I like it. I want to see it get above 14 to take some more. But there's always risk to the downside, and we don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And the fact that Tesla is being sold every day doesn't give me great confidence in the electric market. However, I feel like there has to be a someone in the electric market that is selling trucks and SUVs, and so far to
Yep.
me, they're the most logical name.
I part of my investment in Rivian is the hedge to Tesla, right?
Yeah,
Um, so like if you yeah, so that's kind of part of my I like they need to go profitable. They need to figure out how to hit that lever. And when they do, it's gonna be it's gonna double overnight, if not in like a week, right? Once they hit that profit level. So I'm just buying time. It is a waste of opportunities in the
yeah,
meantime.
yeah,
Uh, every time I think technically it's going to go do something, it does the exact opposite.
yeah.
So, in my
It's
opinion,
frustrating. Up the 100%, it's frustrating as shit.
so I stopped charting it from that perspective. I just own it. I will wait for it to, because it's going to happen. There's a lot of accumulation in this chart overall. I think it's going to happen, but like, dude, I was very frustrated when Rivian IPO'd and they were getting, if not better valuations than Tesla that took 11, 12 years to build.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean that was some bullshit. All that was some
yeah,
bullshit.
I thought it was a lot. I was like, this is kind of annoying. So never bought it at that time. Never even wanted to buy it. But I think there's a decent amount of accumulation happening here, but similar to Tesla in 2013 when it was at $32 all before the pre-splits. So that's the equivalent of like $1.50 now, right? Um, Rivian had Tesla had to base for 5 years post IPO and prove themselves. And once they prove themselves, they'll get rewarded the multiples. And that's, I think, but in the meantime, it looks like accumulation. So just sitting tight with it.
Last one, our old buddy Rash, who's on Stock Twits, wants to know what our thoughts are on Dash, the Door Dasher. It's been
Good
run
equity. good
Been running
equity,
like
but
crazy.
what's that?
It's been running like crazy.
Yeah, good equity, but nothing that is like where I've been looking for like that expansive move in a lot of these names. Maybe that market just doesn't exist anymore. But you saw it in Twilio. It can happen. Twilio had its expansive move. That's what I'm looking for to get them out of these long-term bases. So it looks like a lot of them may happen on this final turn after this deep suck my anything you want um, debacle, right? So I
Yep.
like Dash here, but it's if you're like an options trader like me, this is really hard to fucking play
Yeah.
because all it does is grind. Same thing as Roblox, same thing as a lot of names. It just grinds. So that expansive move is what I'd look for.
All right, GP. I know I'm holding you from doing other things. Love you, brother.
I'm
Thank.
okay to talk for like another 5 minutes if you're good, but
Yeah. I'm good. How about SE?
I've never understood SE, so I've always stayed away. Right?
Yeah. I mean, this COVID cycle was epic to say the least.
Yeah.
Um, I'm with you though. I kind of feel like we just got to delete that part of the chart on everything because I don't know that we're ever going to see that again, ever in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we all made a lot of money. Hopefully, not a lot of people lost all that money, but there was a lot of money made on that shit. Um, I don't
I
know.
wanna
I mean, it
can
looks
you
good from just a chart perspective. I like it here.
yeah.
But the RSI is a little hot. The moving averages on the weekly aren't too extended, but they're a little extended. So maybe I don't know. I don't keep up with the name enough to give you a great um, chart breakdown. Just my 2 cents on the way it looks.
Yeah. If you want to see a concept, if you want to show the audience what I'm talking about, removing that COVID, if you look up my Roku post on StockTwits
Okay.
and bring it up here, if you have the time, that is.
Yeah. Let me find you here. Oh, thanks, Santana. Said I'm looking good today. All right, thanks. Appreciate that. He. Where there's G Pisa. And you want me to share the screen? Is that what you're asking
Yeah.
on your Roku?
Wait, just bring it up on yours, right? Aren't you already
Yeah.
sharing?
I can do it. I just have to change what I'm sharing, which
Okay.
is not a problem. I just have to change what I'm sharing.
Just a
And
quick
let's
idea. So you can
Chrome.
when you visualize it, you're
There
like,
you go. You should be able to see my browser now. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Well,
can see it for sure. It was sometime last week I posted on Roku.
everybody gets to watch me scroll the internet. What did you say about Dell? I saw you. I saw you point out Dell there.
Dell does not look good to me.
There's Roblox. Got to be getting
Absolutely.
close.
That rebrand is hilarious. The GI Joe
There's
rebrand.
Roku.
Yep. So now if you pull up those two charts,
All right, there's
right?
the first one.
That's removing the COVID period essentially, right? You can see that half candle. That's where I cut it,
Yep.
um, and just took it out of the chart. I'm like, oh, look at that. You can look. You see, right? I'm pointing out that there's no volume in that big beast move. Look at all
Yeah.
the volume either on the left or the right side
Yeah. It's just
where,
free
where
money.
it's the basing, right?
All right,
So,
GP.
like, I think this is probably the best way to look at things to kind of understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Like COVID was COVID was whatever. Just take it out, move on, right? Those same scenarios I don't think will ever repeat themselves.
No, I don't think so either. We've talked about this in the past. Um, that doesn't mean that you can't see incredible returns, but the amount of names and the amount of returns that so many gave in 18 months was ridiculous. Just unheard
Yeah.
of. Insane.
Yeah, well, they pretty much said, you want money, you get money, right? And so, but you can see, like, what I couldn't understand when it was happening, right? And now, obviously, hindsight is always good. I think we talked about it in 2022. I was like, all these moves down were happening on really low volume, and it just didn't make any sense to me at the time, right? On a larger time frame. And so this now makes a lot more sense to me is low volume up, low volume down,
Yeah.
right? It's just that's all it was. And they've wiped all that stuff out and we're now in just a in so many names, we're in just a base, in a base, in a base, in a base, right? Like it's just I thought
Which,
this was kind of eye-opening if you visualize it, right?
I like to play devil's advocate, you know that. On the other side of that, this base, right? How many times do you knock before you fail? And I think that's a valid concern in a lower volume environment, right?
Yeah, I think the bigger concern for me is um, one of two things, right? And I think it's the latter for me more than the former, is that we all are basing in all of these names while the markets and indices are just going to nosebleeds. So if the indices die, then all these names die. But then you see indices die on the yen carry trade, and then you see the indices die on deep suck.
Yeah.
And did they die? They did not die, right? So I think it's possible that you can see a market that doesn't have a index being solidly green and a lot of names still be green because of the weighting. The weighting that helps you to the upside can also help you on the downside, right?
Yep.
You can burn off a lot of enthusiasm and technicals via certain names that they've been doing, right? I think I posted on Friday, Apple. Apple, they beat for 2 weeks straight. I'm like, Apple's going to retake control. And literally out of the gate yesterday, Apple was like up $9, right?
Yep.
So the rotational forces can continue to do whatever they're doing in the indices, but every time we've seen any of these crazy monster dips, and I mean they were crazy. The Qs were down 17% overnight over in 3 weeks, right? During the yen
Yes.
carry. So crazy moves down, yet you're not seeing the markets actually have that much red, right? You'll see
Yep.
the red is concentrated. Netflix, Microsoft, Google, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, and NVDA, right? Kind of dominate. So that's the first part. I think that they can all just crash right together, or the second part, which is what I just talked about, which I think that is the indices can continue to churn while lots of names continue to push higher, right? Like if there's 500 names in the S&P and 70%, like 70% of 500 is how many? It is about 350 stocks, right? 350 stocks all have 1% gains and Apple has a 10% down day, then they'll balance to zero, right?
Yep.
Because Apple is like 10% of the index or whatever it is. Don't question me on my math. It might be garbage math at the moment,
You,
but I'm
you
just
you
saying,
might be a little bit off sometimes. It's okay. I
so,
do estimates and you jump all over me, so it's all right.
yeah. But you can see Apple took it in the pooper for 3 weeks to start the year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, how many
other
times over the last 18 months have we heard about Apple's death, right? Apple's going to fall off. Apple's going to fall off. Apple sucks, sucks, sucks. Well, all Apple has done is keep marching up to an all-time high. Look at this big boner bar this week, right?
Yeah, dude. And look, like they're like it's just. But this is a great example. Yesterday, the markets could not find a footing on the indices, but Apple was up $9, right? With this heavy weighting, we closed at near the lows, or we were at the lows until like the last 15 minutes.
Just over the last 2 years. Apple's gonna die, Apple's gonna die, Apple's gonna die, Apple's gonna die.
Apple has no growth. They aren't doing anything.
Apple's
Dude,
gonna
guys,
die. Apple's gonna
Apple is
die
the biggest weighted stock in the market,
for
in
a
people's
reason.
portfolios, in ETFs, in indices. It is not going to die. Not at least now.
Yeah.
It's going to rotate. So stop saying die.
All right, we special announcement next week. Special cookie episode on deck. I know it's not ideal time. It'll be when the market opens on February the 4th. However, we take our time with Cookie, how we can get it, and that's how we're going to get it this time around. So it'll be great to hear from him. We haven't heard from him in over a quarter, right? I think it was October when we talked to him last. So this will be a great check-in with him. I'm really excited about it. So we'll see what he says. He told I'll give GP a little bit of background. He told me that he was listening to the pod, and he's been kind of in my camp of the market is I hate to say it, but the market is fairly valued currently is what he liked that I said. So we'll see if his tones change. My tone has changed a little bit. I'm a little peppier. I love seeing a big, massive sell off for no reason at all. Um, so
Dude, I was so happy yesterday, and we were down 800 points, right? Like, or whatever it was. We're down for
I
the
mean, it
first time.
really wasn't even that bad, honestly. But I look for the overreaction,
Yeah.
and basically 5% between sessions is an overreaction. So anyway, all right, GP,
Okay.
love you, brother.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.
Take
Thank you,
care.
guys.
Thanks
Entertaining all
everybody
my
for stopping in
theories.
and watching. We appreciate it,
Yeah.
and hopefully we'll see
Entertaining
you
my
next
theories.
Tuesday morning.